Good evening, councillors. We will start with prayers with Andrew Fordyce, MBE. A man was walking along a beach and he noticed that there'd been a bloom of jellyfish, and he saw a young lad pick up a jellyfish with a spade and put it in a bucket of water and said, "Doing?" And the boy walked down to the shore edge and dropped the jellyfish in. He said, "There's thousands here. What difference is it going to make?" The boy says, "It made a difference to that one." And the challenge is that we want to do right by the individual, but we've also got to hold the big picture, work for the good of all. And my prayer is for that. Heavenly Father, help us to care for individuals by name, and also help us to care for the good of all. Be with us, give us wisdom in the tension of that. Amen. Thank you for your service. Thank you, councillors. Members of the public, please be seated.
Thank you. Before we start, a welcome back to Councillor Jim Codlin. Round of applause for Councillor Jim Codlin for his return. I'm sure all councillors wish you well. Thank you. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Mr. Davison.
Thank you, Chairman. I've had apologies for absence from Councillor Bush, Councillor Wiggins, Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? No. Item number 2, minutes of the last meeting of the council. Councillor Turner.
He sends his apologies.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. That's Councillor Daniel Land gives his apologies. Mr. Davison. Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Sorry, Councillor Tanya Ferguson as was given apologies.
Yeah, I got that. It's on our list, Councillor Guglielmi. Thank you. Any more? Thank you. Item number 2, minutes of the last meeting of the council, pages 1 to 4. All agreed? Agreed. Item number 3, declaration of interest, if any. None, thank you. Item number 4, chairman's announcements. I only have 2. Last week, on Monday 11th, Councillor Casey and I and the council and a few other councillors attended the raising of the Commonwealth flag. It was also Andrew Fordyce led us with prayers there, so thank you, Andrew, for leading the prayers there of the Commonwealth flag raising. And also on the 16th of March, I attended a charity quiz in my ward of Alresford, and proceeds from that go to the chairman's charities this year. Thank you. Item number 5, announcements by the Chief Exec. Mr. Davison.
I have none, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Item number 6, statements made by the Leader of the Council. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. Considering I've got a very long speech to read, I'll say no to this.
Okay. Item number 7, statements by members of the Cabinet, if any. None, thank you. Item number 8, the annual statement of Tendring District Council by the Leader of the Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, councillors and members of the public, I'm delighted to present to you this year's State of Tendring Address. This statement is intended to give you an overview of some of the council's achievements over the past year and from my time as the leader since May last year. As you will all be aware, there were a number of changes in May 2023 elections, and some of you, this is the first time as an elected district councillor. So this is an opportunity to reflect on the journey we have been on over the past few months, as well as to consider priorities and challenges that lay ahead. Being an effective councillor requires both commitment and hard work, and as councillors, each of us represent our community and the interests of our residents, and we should not understate our role in representing and doing the right thing for Tendring. Being an elected member is both rewarding and a privilege. It is undeniably a great honour to have the trust of residents placed into our hands, and we're all in a position to make a difference in the quality of other people's daily lives, prospects they have. I believe we lead the way in Tendring with innovative solutions, single-minded positivity, matched with a can-do attitude, as we aim to work with our many partners nationally, regionally and locally. Every effective administration can clearly define its priorities for the duration of its term. I trust that you're all familiar with these priorities, as the new administration collaborated formulate and establish a new corporate plan called Our Vision. This plan outlines the Council's vision and key objectives for the forthcoming 4 years, and last week the detail of our first year was approved by Cabinet gives more details on how we aim to deliver on those priorities. I bring up the corporate plan because we have made extensive efforts to engage with the residents of Tendring to fully grasp what matters to them and what doesn't. This corporate plan serves as a blueprint for all councillors, outlining the desires and priorities of the residents. With this in mind, I would like to highlight some of the progress and achievements we've made since May 2023. Undoubtedly, the levelling up funds has been a top priority. Work has commenced to deliver the levelling up fund in Clacton, with the demolition of Carnarvon House paving the way for new homes and an overhaul of the car park. Collaborating with Essex County Council, plans are underway to rebuild the library and introduce adult community learning, while the University of Essex's Centre for Coastal Community is set to establish a base in the new hub. Furthermore, capital regeneration projects in Dovercourt are underway, where consultation has taken place ahead of improvements in Kingsway to transform the look and feel of the town centre, and design work to bring the integration of adult community learning into the library has progressed. The Levelling Up Partnership will provide £20 million of capital funding next year, pending final approvals by ministers. Government officials are to decide on the investment package following detailed discussions with the council and partner organisations across the district during the early part of this year. We look forward to hearing their forthcoming final proposals shortly. Next, we have the long-term plan for towns, allocating an additional £20 million over a 10-year span with a focus on Clacton. This plan aims to inject much-needed investment into Clacton Town Centre. To spearhead this initiative, we've established a new town board for Clacton, comprising community leaders, business figures and local groups, all working collaboratively to shape the town's future and oversee the plan's implementation. Despite stringent government timelines, our diligent officers have managed to organise its inaugural meeting scheduled for next week and is likely to be the first of its kind in the country. Finally, we come to the High Street Accelerate initiative, which provides £237 for Dovercourt Town Centre's improvements. And this will be formally launched at a Family Fun Day, Saturday, March the 30th. Notably, while these funds are administered by TDC, the voluntary sector, private sector and residents play a crucial role in determining where these funds are directed. Additionally, we are in the process of bidding for a further £500,000 extension of this scheme, which hopes of delivering some positive news in the near future. Chairman, I'm sure you'll agree we have a lot happening within the framework of levelling up. However, there's much more in the pipeline. I'm referring specifically to the Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community, TCBGC project. This is an additional significant endeavour being undertaken by TDC. For those that can recall, the development plan document, the DPD, sorry for the acronyms, for the garden community was submitted to the Secretary of State in September 2023, following 2 rounds of formal public consultation. The submission version of the DPD is a plan containing policies, standards and an indicative master plan layout that will shape the growth of a planned new settlement between Colchester, Ardley and Elmstead Market. It forms part of the adopted local plans for Tendring and Colchester, and which will deliver around 7,500 new homes and opportunities for employment over the next 30 to 40 years. A government planning inspector has been appointed to examine the DPD, which will involve considering all the evidence and assessing if the DPD is sound and compliant with local and national planning policy. The inspector will be conducting a public hearing this May before coming to their conclusions. Once the plan is formally adopted, any future planning applications to develop the garden community will be determined by the Joint Committee in line with the policies set out in the plan. It feels an appropriate time to mention that the Council has now kick-started the review of its local plan to ensure our blueprint for the future growth of Tendring and the rule book for determining planning applications remains up to date, aligns with government thinking, gives us the best chance to shape the future of our district, ensuring high quality development at the right time and in the right place. Reviewing and updating the local plan is also critical in ensuring that the district is protected from unwanted, harmful, speculative development, and that our natural and historic environment can continue to be protected and enhanced. Speaking of which, our district enjoys a wealth of attractive and historically significant buildings and areas worth of special protection. Tendring has 20 conservation areas, which are defined as areas of special architectural or historical interest, the character or appearance of which is desirable to preserve or enhance. In line with the Council's heritage strategy, a series of character appraisals and management plans have been produced for each of the 20 conservation areas in tendering through joint work between our planning officers and heritage experts in Essex Place Services. Following public consultation, we are now in the process of formally adopting these documents, and so they are material planning considerations when considering development proposals within conservation areas. Continuing on the theme of planning and housing, I'd like to provide an update on two housing projects currently in progress. Firstly, Spendles Housing, Walton and Naze is undergoing conversion by TDC into temporary accommodation aimed at housing individuals and families experiencing homelessness. The existing two-storey accommodation is undergoing renovations, with additional facilities being added, resulting in a total of 32 flats, including one designed to be wheelchair accessible. There will also be flexibility to connect certain flats to accommodate larger families. This new facility at Spendles House will address the urgent need for emergency accommodation, reducing our reliance on costly bed and breakfast options for those in need. This initiative offers improved support for individuals in difficult circumstances by keeping them closer to home and ensuring a minimum standard of quality. Furthermore, plans are underway to construct 13 bungalows and a flat in Lawford for older residents, along with a community building in the Honeycroft site in Waldegrave Way. Repurposing this site demonstrates a positive use of council assets. Revitalising Honeycroft and providing quality housing for our residents will significantly benefit the community and contribute to addressing our priorities. Funding for those projects is sourced from the council's housing budget, with costs being recouped over a 30-year period. Moving on, and Freeport East continues to progress with a limited company which will drive this forward, creating a hub for global trade and regeneration. Freeport East was formally designated by the government in January 2023, taking a huge step forwards in the drive to create 13,500 new jobs in the region and transformational change. Work has already started with the Tendering Future Skills Partnership to discuss the skills and roles of the future, which are likely to be created as part of this project. Chairman, while I believe I've highlighted the major ongoing projects in tendering, there are plenty of smaller yet equally significant endeavours deserving recognition. These projects collectively contribute to making tendering a truly remarkable place to live. I wanted to highlight a few tonight. Let's start with the completion of the New Orwell Place, and some of you may know it's called, we used to know it as Starlings, designed as both a community space and a car park. This transformative project, utilising the former Starlings garage and the site of the Queen's Head Hotel, which was destroyed by fire a few years ago, now offers 51 car parking spaces, an events area and public toilets, all within an inviting landscaped setting. Despite cost pressures and unforeseen challenges, the project has successfully concluded, standing as a testament to the Council's unwavering determination and a triumph for both the Council and the District. The Economic Growth Team has successfully delivered the Sunspot project. It features 24 affordable business units, a covered market, a cafe, public toilets and meeting rooms, complemented by a community garden, bus shelter and event space. This development marks a significant step in Jovik regeneration, offering a much needed facility that addresses both the business community requirements and those of residents. Notably, the Sunspot has garnered attention in the architectural realm, earning recognition as one of the top 5 buildings in 2023 by The Observer, and is receiving high commendation in the McEwen Award 2024, an annual award recognising architecture for the common good. Regarding business, it's no secret how deeply the Council values local enterprises and their impact on the community economy. Last October, under the Tendering for Growth banner, the Council delivered a comprehensive 2-week event featuring jobs and skills fair and an award ceremony spotlighting the diverse range of exceptional businesses in the tendering district. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and our efforts persist through regular newsletters, updates, and small events year-round. The team has also delivered a £1.84 million in business adaptation grants, expanding the Tendering for Growth brand, including awards, administered the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England's Prosperity Fund, all while supporting businesses and partners. Let's not forget that they also wrote the 2 successful Levelling Up bids mentioned earlier. in line with the long-term plans for the area. I hope all this demonstrates to the business community that tendering is open for business. Residents voiced strong support for the Clacton Air Show in our recent consultation. 2023 event, drawing approximately 250,000 visitors, boasted one of England's largest flight lineups, including a stunning twilight show. An economic assessment revealed its value to our local economy at around £12 million. Feedback from businesses, visitors and locals highlight the event's positive impact, generating excitement and pride in tendering. Understanding its significance, we proudly announced in January our commitment to hosting the air show until 2027, ensuring its continuation as the cherished tradition in our district. Tonight, I'm also proud to showcase our revamped theatre, the gem in our district. Its recent redecoration, swapping the tired salmon pink for classic theatre hues, enhances its charm. The investment is justified with over 14,500 attendees at our record-breaking pantomime, Aladdin, during Christmas. Ticket sales surpassed the previous year by £10,000, with glowing five-star reviews echoing the joy of our audience's faces. This success reaffirms our commitment to enriching cultural experiences for our community. Finally, the newly refurbished £250,000 concrete Clacton Skate Park opened to the public in August and has been a hugely popular facility for local people. Skate park users were able to add their input to the specifications of works, and as such, influence has the finished product, which added a new, free-to-use, high-quality facility for our young people. It would take a lot longer to list all of our achievements in what has been a very busy year so far, and it looks like next year is just as exciting and will deliver more for residents, as our new leisure and wellbeing strategy, currently out for consultation, will drive our ambition to encourage everyone to be more active. That strategy is designed with our partners in mind, and where would we be without them? I'm extremely proud of Tendering's ability to work with partners to build strong, deliverable relationships for the good of residents, and so much has been achieved. Do not just take our word for that we are achieving success. There are plenty of examples of national recognition, and I'm happy to list a few. The Council has achieved 4 green flags for parks and gardens, including Clacton Seafront Gardens, Wheelie Crematorium Gardens, Cliff Park in Dovercourt, and Crescent Gardens in Frinton. Alongside this, 7 beaches in Tendring have been handed prestigious awards by Keep Brent Tidy, including 4 of the top blue flags for the first time in 8 years. 2 new beaches along the Essex Sunshine Coast have been awarded the prestigious blue flag for 2023 at Princeton and Walton on Nazes Albion Beach. Brightlings and Dovercourt Bay also retained their blue flag status. We are currently awaiting on the 2024 results. In addition, Brightlingsea, Harwich, Brinton, Walton on Nazes, Albion and Naze Beaches, and Martello Bay and Clacton have all been given Seaside Awards in recognition of their quality. 28 tendering car parks have received top safety accreditation awards and achieved the Safer Parking Award Scheme, Park Mark. Council has also been awarded Gold accreditation in recognition of its work supporting the armed forces as part of the Military of Defence Employers Recognition Scheme. This scheme publicly recognises employers' efforts to support defence personnel issues such as employing reservists and veterans. These awards celebrate our initiative, hard work and dedication to improving services. Career Track has its Ofsted inspection towards the end of the last year, and I'm so proud that the team achieved good in every category. This reflects the dedication, professionalism and hard work of the assessors, alongside the fantastic contribution of public services and businesses across Tendring and North East Essex. We have also heard that we have been shortlisted for a local Government Chronicle Award for our health initiative with Tendring Pedal Power and 2 PPMA awards. We will find out the results of these applications later in the year, probably June. Our community leadership work continues to expand and fits into 3 key strands, namely health, education and community safety. Tendring Education Strategic Book has brought together head teachers and education professionals from Essex County Council, tendering officers to prioritise key issues for young people in schools. 3 priorities have been identified for this year, including school attendance, the curriculum and skills. All of this work aims to support our young people to reach their full potential and provide as many opportunities as possible. We recently held a STEAM event, science, technology, engineering, art and maths, bringing Year 6 primary pupils to the town hall to meet local businesses and have hands-on experiences. There were definitely some budding builders, engineers and health professionals in the room, and it was a pleasure to see the children's enthusiasm. We are proud to have worked closely with health colleagues and to have been able to support the Clacton Hospital Diagnostic Hub. Fantastic local service to residents, and we recently heard from the Chief Executive of the Integrated Care Board that our 250,000 procedures have been completed at the hub since its opening, including CT and MRI scans, X-ray, lung capacity tests, blood tests. This also means that there have been 250,000 fewer journeys to and from Colchester Hospital for tendering residents, alongside the creation of 100 new jobs for local people. Amidst our achievements, it's crucial to briefly acknowledge looming challenges. Our budget confronts mounting pressure, necessitating £3 million in savings over the next 3 years. Tough decisions are undoubtedly ahead. Both nationally and locally, we are tackling the cost of living crisis, housing shortages, and the implications of a new government, climate change, and significant industrial action in transport and healthcare. Whilst internationally, conflict persists in various countries around the world. Yet rather than dwell on these challenges, I would rather look at what we've already been achieved. Finally, but not by no means least, I'd like to extend my gratitude to our remarkable staff who consistently go above and beyond their duties. Their dedication ensures that our essential tasks we often take for granted, considered part of the everyday operations, are successfully carried out. At a recent Tendering Stars event, I had the privilege of acknowledging the outstanding contributions of our staff throughout the council. A notable example of their commitment was demonstrated when our sports facility teams received commendation from the East of England Ambulance Service for their life-saving efforts in 2 separate incidents last year. Their swift and decisive action, including performing CPR, resulted in 2 individuals returning home to their families that night. We should all take immense pride in their exemplary actions. And so, Chairman, to conclude, the Council continues to face many challenges in tendering, and I urge members to carry on contributing positively to address issues and problems as they arise. There will be difficult decisions to make. It is likely that we will look at different ways of delivering services that will not be easy. Chairman, it was once said that a week and a long time in politics, so it should come as no surprise that even though the administration has been in place since May 2023, so much has happened both locally and nationally. Tendering District Council has shown that we can rise to challenges through sound financial management, embracing new ways of working, ability to adapt and change our plans in often rapid circumstances, work with partners. We must always remember that we are merely custodians of this great district and that we are here to support and deliver for the residents of Tendring. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Any questions? Debate? Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Stevenson on an impressive statement. What a wonderful place we live in. Tendring is a fantastic district. I just wanted to mention just 1 or 2 things and question the leader to see whether we can do more. The leader mentions that we were awarded the gold accreditation for the Armed Forces Covenant, which I think was awarded about 18 months ago. The one thing that sort of most veterans talk about is how does it actually help them? What's tangible about that? And there are some fantastic elements of that, and the council have made big strides forward in terms of recruitment, and there are some really good things there. But the thing that I think that, and hopefully the leader will agree with me, that we need to do more to help the homeless veterans. The veterans that it takes 1, 2, 3 weeks to actually confirm whether we have any responsibility, and I do believe that we need to do more. The other thing which is mentioned here are the Blue Flag Awards for the beaches. When I was chairman, I spoke to one of my charities was the RNLI, and I spoke with them about helping with the safety of our beaches. And the RNLI were basically offering it on a plate to look after certain sections of the coastline free of charge and to use their expertise. Can the leader confirm whether those discussions were continued and are ongoing, or whether they led anywhere? But I know that the RNI LI were very keen, and we certainly don't want to see any tragedies that we have seen in recent years. The other point, which is really good, and as a small business owner myself, is I'm very keen and delighted to see the mention of business and the fantastic opportunities that exist with the business, sort of the Freeport and the town centre partnerships. Does the leader agree that all businesses, which represent about 90% of employment across this district, need support, and we need to do more to support them? And one area which is a significant factor to the local economy, which is very often unfortunately overlooked, is the farming community. Farming community, the rural community, are a massive part of our district, and I would urge the leader to look at supporting our farmers who are going through a difficult time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Next councillor on the list is Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Stevenson, for delivering a very good speech on the state of tendering. And it would be remiss of me to claim some of the credit for the projects that the administration has extremely well taken on board. Honeycroft, Overplace, Sunspot, Skate Park, levelling up funding projects that you've got in chains. Excellent work that you're doing. But it's really, to give some background, it was very hard work from the previous administration that put it on the spot. The one thing you mentioned about the coastal towns, for quite some time we've been trying to get Manning Tree recognised as a beach location, and we failed quite badly. There's no real appetite. It's got a lovely beach there, and we very, very good to kind of trying to recognise that. At Cabinet, you remember last week, I did highlight the plight of the rurals, that they seem to be forgotten, and that rightly so, the administration previously worked very hard to tackle the deprivation and the needs of coastal communities. But like I said, it would be quite good going forward, and you did undertake a point on board that some attention would be given to the rules. So the beach location in Manning Tree would be quite a good one to be recognised and provide some of the infrastructure that places in the southern part of the district happen to have. And also, you mentioned the tendering Colchester border. My question is, would you agree with me that we should really highlight that more to people, to make people understand the importance of the development? Because without that, the rest of the district would be left to plug the gap for a hell of a load of houses, and especially, rightly so, you mentioned that the ongoing review of the local plan. We will be looking to for extra numbers very soon. So the importance of tendering Colchester border, and I was quite taken back, and I think some of the cabinet was as well, the fact that when the survey was done, people did not give a huge amount of importance to what the tendering Colchester border community will do. Like I said, it would be quite good for to hear your thoughts and to give a bit more attention to rules when we seem to be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Next councillor on my list is Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would like to say how pleased I was that the independent Labour administration took on board so many policies that were brought forward by the Conservative-led administration. To start with, there was a couple of quick, easy fixes. The Sunspot, you hit the ground running. The skate park, I think you just needed to cut the ribbon. But as we move along, Spendles, we now hear it's overdue. and we don't know if it's over budget. Could you let us know? The Clacton safety cameras, they're overdue, well overdue. Are they over budget? We'd like to know. The housing strategy seems to have been abandoned. We're not sure if it's being worked on or whether it's going to be done at the end of the year. When will the housing strategy be available so people know the direction we're going? And finally, we say that or you've pointed out or assured us that you have a sound financial management. Are you on course for the savings that are needed? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Honeywood, Paul Honeywood. Councillor Gary Culver, please remain seated when you answer these questions or say something.
Thank you very much, Chair. May I congratulate the leader on a very impressive speech and following on for what I said previously, an honest speech as to the situation that this council and the tendering district faces. I am disappointed by a speech just made from the opposite side of the chamber, in which questions have been asked about the financial soundness and the budgetary position of initiatives that we have inherited. Considering what the Conservative government has done to this council in terms of removing millions and millions of pounds each year since 2013 through the revenue support grant, and considering that the Conservatives opposite have sat there throughout all that time almost thanking the government for doing it, I would have hoped for a little more humility. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. I have any more councillors? Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I got off a bit lightly tonight, so where shall I start? Councillor Guglielmi, I take on board your points about how some of the things that I spoke about today were indeed put in place in some way by your administration. But like all administrations, it's for the next administration to carry those things on and to deliver them. And sometimes that's the more tricky part, rather than just getting the money. As we're finding out, certain things like the levelling up, which I grant you took some doing, but it's going to take even more doing to deliver. And as we sit in Cabinet, the rurals, I haven't forgotten them. I think we need to find a way to remember them, together. And I have got an idea, which I will share with the council once I've sounded it and fleshed it out with the officers to address that perception that we've forgotten them. And as for the beach, I wasn't aware that was something Manningtree wanted. So I was aware of the beach, but I just didn't realise you wanted it recognised. As for the gardening community, I absolutely agree. More needs to be done for the public to be made aware of just how important the garden community is too. Not just the garden community itself, but the impact it could have if it was lost to us in any way, shape or form with speculative housing and that sort of stuff. I would also say that your committee that you sit on, as part of it, has probably got the resources and the power to do that just as much as we have. Councillor Harris, the Blue Flag Awards. Thank you very much for acknowledging them. Your conversation with the RNLI I'm not privy to, and I'm not sure we're well aware of that, so if I can pick that up with you after this, that'd be great. And as for the supporting business, I think Councillor Henderson has done an excellent job doing that already. As far as I'm aware, he is the only portfolio holder that has been to visit, does one or two a month, all these businesses, big businesses. And I think we do a good job of supporting local businesses. Can we do more? Well, you can always do more. Do we think we're at the right place at the moment? Businesses can reach out to us at any time. We've got 1,300 businesses on our mailing list. If they want to join that mailing list, if they want to come and speak to us, the door's open. I said that in my speech. And as for the gold accreditation, there is quite a bit to that. I'll get that sent to you. As for how we do with the housing, I'm not specific on circumstances, so I can't possibly comment on whether it's 1, 2 or 3 weeks. Sorry about that. Councillor Calver, sorry. I agree with you around the money. I don't think anybody in the room disagrees with you. And it's unfortunate it's a Conservative government, but we have been squeezed beyond bleeding, and the rock is now about the barren. As for the savings, Councillor Honeywood, I think it's fair to say that I did give a fairly comprehensive speech last month about where we were going with that. But if you wanted to be rest assured, we are identifying and have in place some ideas around how we will find the £3 million. We have got 3 years, and there is a plan to deliver that in 3 years. You've got your scrutiny committee. I'm happy to come and sit in front of your scrutiny committee. We will do what should be done with the scrutiny, with the finances. As for the housing strategy, where can I go with the housing strategy? I think when you wrote it, it was right for the time. I said this before. Things have moved on. Got so many more things. There wasn't Ukraine war. There wasn't inflation at its record levels. There wasn't a housing crisis. There wasn't temporary accommodation problem that we face at the moment. And to sit there and say that we should build more houses whilst we are struggling to put people under roof is not the right strategy. It will come. It will come as quickly as we can get it to. It does need to be reworked because a failing strategy is not one you want to stick to. As for CCTV, there's been some issues, not of our making. These were ones we inherited, and we're happy to take them on with you. Yeah, I think it was a really good project. It's not over budget, as far as I'm aware, and it's really, really important that we do get this delivered, but we have to do it properly. And as for Spendles, that is going on fine. We're hoping to see that delivered 1 month later than possible, but that's where we are at the moment, and I'm happy to give an update on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Next item on the agenda is petitions to council, and there are none. Item 10, questions to pursuant to council procedure 10.1. Councillors, we have on our agenda this evening a question to the portfolio holder for assets, Councillor Cox, that has been submitted by Katie Richards of the Laughing Lobster Club Wild Swimmers on behalf of the club, and also Mental Health Swimmers Holland-on-Sea, Blue Tip Swimmers on Clacton-on-Sea, and the Tendring Wanderers Walking Group. Unfortunately, Katie is unable to attend this evening due to her family commitments. However, having considered her request and pursuant to Council Procedure 29, interpretation of the procedure rules, I'm making a ruling as the construction or application of the Council's Procedure Rule 10.7, so as to allow another member of the public to ask the question on Katie's behalf. I therefore accordingly invite Kim Wilson to now come forward and ask the question. Please come forward and sit at the table there. Please make yourself comfortable. And on the front, you have a face with 3 speech marks. Just press that and it will go red. And that's the time to start the question. Thank you.
Will the portfolio holder for assets agree to open 1 additional toilet all year round in Clacton-on-Sea by Russell Road site, and that 1 additional toilet be opened all year round in Holland-on-Sea by the Kingscliff site? This would reflect the many more people now using our beautiful seafront to improve their physical and mental well-being. The people this would benefit include sea swimmers, cyclists, joggers, walkers, dog walkers, all of the local residents, and of course our visitors, whom we highly value bringing trade to the local area. Having these 2 additional toilets open along the seafront through the winter season would mean there would not be too far between facilities and nearby to the swim and walk locations. This would be such a relief for so many of our members and enable people to spend more time outdoors rather than having to rush home and cut short their activities.
Thank you. If you'd like to turn it off, please, and please stay seated while I invite Councillor Cox to respond to your question. And once Councillor Cox has finished, then you please return to the public gallery. Thank you. Councillor Peter Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And may I thank Katie Richards for notice of her question. and also for Kim Wilson for presenting it to us tonight. The Public Health Act in 1936 gives local authorities a power to provide public conveniences. It imposes no duty on them to do so. The service is discretionary. Tendring District Council currently provides 28 public conveniences with 18 open year-round, in addition to 8 changing place facilities. A comprehensive review of public conveniences was conducted in 2016 by what was then the Commercialisation Portfolio Holder Working Party. Recommendations included reduce annual revenue budgets by the agreed closure or seasonal closure of a number of sites across the Tendring district. Sites identified for closure or seasonal closure were highlighted to be of low use, be in disrepair due to aging infrastructure, or subject to antisocial behaviour. These factors contributed to higher maintenance and cleaning costs and made certain sites a target for vandalism and drug taking. Following that review, a public convenience strategy was adopted in 2017, which included the agreement for closures or seasonal closures. The strategy also allowed the council to follow a schedule of refurbishments in remaining sites and to meet the then council's vision, providing high quality and affordable services. This could not be provided at that time if all sites were to remain open or to be opened, were to remain or opened all year round. Busy areas of the district, such as town centres and popular seafront areas, have a facility open all year. The 2 areas mentioned have a public convenience open all year round, less than half a mile away. Whilst we understand the importance of the location of public conveniences, it is an impossible task to provide facilities in all requested areas. The opening of the requested sites would mean 4 public conveniences open all year round in just 1.5 miles of coastline, with increased cleaning and maintenance budgets need to supply this service. It would be hard to justify such a decision having regard to the overall financial position of the council and the need to scrutinise and prioritise all expenditure. Longer-standing members may recall the council considering a petition to construct new public conveniences in this area at its meeting on the 24th of January 2023, so a few months before I became a member of this council. Subsequent consideration by the then Cabinet concluded concern as to the overall financial position of the organisation. The then administration appears to have agreed on the need to consider the requested increase in provision within the context of review of the public conveniences strategy, including the needs of all parts of the district and a wide view of priorities. Whilst there are no plans at this point to change the opening hours of the public conveniences, there is a review planned this year, and I've set that review in train of all our facilities and the current strategy where all options and proposals will be considered. We will, of course, Mr. Chairman, continue to provide the best services we can to the best of our capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock, and thank you, Kim Wilson, for your question on behalf of Katie Richards. Thank you very much. Item number 11, report of the leader of the council. Urgent cabinet or portfolio holders, there are none. Item 12, minutes of the committees, pages 15 to 32.
Thank you, Leader. If it pleases the council, I'm happy
Councillor Stevens, can we just wait to members of the public that wish to leave? Thank you for your attendance this evening. Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. If it pleases the council, I'm happy to move those 2 committee minutes en bloc.
Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. Item 13, motions to council pursuant to Council Procedure 12. There are none. 14, reference from the Cabinet A1 Annual Capital and Treasury Strategy for 2024-25, including prudential and treasury indicators. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm happy to move this tonight. For some of you at Cabinet, you may have heard some of this before. It was only on Tuesday we decided to discuss this, and it was moved to bring it to Council. So, although it's a fairly dry subject, me and Carlo would disagree. Recent events elsewhere in the country, including those at Thurrock, highlight how important our policies and processes around our capital investment and treasury activities. In terms of the position at Thurrock, for example, a summary of some of those findings emerging from the best value inspection are included in the report, which sets out a number of failings. One that especially jumped out to me was the inspections team's description of some of the delegations to their S151 officer being extraordinary. Powerful word. I think what the findings indicate is that members need to have a fairly good grasp of the various issues and responsibilities set out within their own strategy, and that we can be assured that our money is being managed effectively and within a risk-averse approach. Though I certainly have a good level of assurance, which is hopefully shared by all members, it is still vitally important that we have an independent view on our financial standing, resilience from our external auditor as soon as possible. With this in mind, our new auditors, KPMG, have indicated that they plan on providing their commentary on the Council's use of resources as soon as possible in 24-25. If members need any support in getting their heads around anything in the strategy, then please let me know, as I can then look to arrange training or development sessions as necessary. In terms of the strategy itself, there have only been a few minor changes compared to last year, with the main item of note being the treatment of items we lease in. This is a rather technical change impacting on accounting requirements rather than on our underlying financial position and budget. There has been no changes that reduce or loosen our risk-averse approach. The quality of our investments we make remain the same as previous years. It is also worth highlighting the changes including the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act in 2023, which looks to address some of the failings we have seen at other local authorities in recent times. The government can now make risk mitigation directions when certain triggers arise within a local authority. This is a positive change, and I look forward to seeing the various thresholds that the government will announce around the metrics that they have introduced, which are set out in the report. Metrics and triggers will likely impact on the various authorities that have been in the press recently, rather than authorities like ourselves that are effectively managed, especially when it comes to managing finances. It's also worth highlighting that the first instalment of money owed by Birmingham City Council has now been received. A repayment of £4 million was recently received, with a remaining amount of £2 million due back in June. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. First speaker, Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do welcome the refreshed Treasury strategy, which if any of you has ever got any insomnia problems or lack of sleep, I fully recommend it. I don't. It's a really vibrant document, I'm told. I've spent many years looking at it, and it's netted the council very goodly sums, runs into the millions. The returns on investment that this council has had, we do joke about it, but it is a very, very important document for the council to have. And it reflects the position that the council has and the approach it has on its investment and borrowing, if you like. The one thing that's worth noting is that council are no longer allowed to borrow to invest, not as such anyway, and it's rightly so, following some of the example that we've seen around the country. The one really point to take from that is the forecast of the interest rate, that it will stabilise to 3% somewhere on the line about 24, 25, 26. And of course, the windfall that the council's had, being very fortunate last year and possibly this coming year, will dry up somewhat. And really, that's I've raised this at Cabinet last week. It's something that we really need to kind of address, because there will be a gap there to be filled in. But I do welcome, also welcome the KPMG early indication that they will give a clean bill of health. It's always worrying, and the situation has been the audit committee, as in previous administration, this current one has always highlighted the fact that the Section 151 endorsement on the council website gave really reassurance that finances are in good stead. But it is concerning if the authority went for whatever funding for borrowing for whatever reason. It's never that great not to have up-to-date accounts books, even though it's not our own doing. But I do welcome the intention of KPMG to give us an early indication that, or confirmation, if you like, that all is well within the finances of the authority. So I do welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guerrero. I don't know whether this councillor put his finger up to ask or done same as Councillor Chris Griffiths. Did you indicate to speak? Fine. Any other councillors want to speak on that one? No. Councillor Stevenson?
Thank you, Chairman. So thank you, Carlo, for taking my Treasury strategy to bed with you. I think to address your questions around the forecast interest rate, that's exactly what they are. They are forecasts. We have to put them in place. I think as we go forward, we'll see what the impact of those are, but we've got a reserve that will help us deal with any shortfalls in the short term. And I think we're in a good place for us to accommodate interest rates. I don't think that they're such an issue for us at this moment in time, especially with the current rates of interest. And I will say, again, they are just a forecast. As for the audit, I'm a lover of the audit. You know, what I want is that peace of mind. I think we all do. I mean, we have an excellent S151 officer. We've got our chief exec who used to work somewhere, but I can't remember. And I feel confident that we're in a good place, but it would be nice for somebody else to tell us that. And I'd just like to point out that our current borrowing, just £132,000, the big general fund, doesn't include when we have to buy our stock back for the HRA. £132,000, there's plenty of councillors out there who'd be jealous of that rate at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. We go on and vote on this. All agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 15, reference from Cabinet A2, request to change the commence time of meetings of the Planning Committee, pages 33 to 36. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this one speaks for itself. The idea is that we would like to request the change from the commence time 6 to 5 p.m. I'm going to leave it there, as I know there's an amendment coming.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Stevenson, can you confirm whether you are moving this, please?
My apologies, Chairman. Yes, I am moving this. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Anyone wants to speak now? Please indicate. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say I still have major concerns over this change. I fully accept that for those on the committee, it's probably helpful if you start early so you can get home to have your coffee or whatever. But let's remember that the actual planning committee is one of the main council services that actually directly affects our residents. The built environment stays with people who live next to the new development for years and sometimes decades. And what we build has a tangible impact on their lives, both in the present and the immediate future, and also going forward. I accept that 5 o'clock for those that are retired or are sitting on the committee and have the day off seems perfectly reasonable. After all, if you're sitting on a coach, driving halfway around, tendering, looking at sites, it probably is good to be able to get your committee meeting over and done with so you can go home early. But spare a thought for those residents who work, who are turning up for the planning committee, not by choice, but because something is being built next to them that they don't agree with. For anybody that lives outside of Clacton, in effect, if you work, it means you're having a day off from work. So not only have you got the added sort of inconvenience of having to take a day off, but you're also upset and losing money at the same time. This can't be right. We heard from our Reverend how important it is to look after the small things in life, and the comment made with a jellyfish of how important it was for that one jellyfish to be put back in the water. Consider how important it is for that one resident who has a development being put next to their dwelling, who wants to come along to try to stop it, because their view and their life is being disrupted and upset by it. Surely for those people, we ought to make meetings accessible and at times they can get to. For those who work outside of Clacton and have to travel in to get to the planning committee, it should be easy and helpful to get to. For those councillors who work and have to travel in and need to try to represent their local community, meetings should be accessible. In my view, this is not fair. This doesn't do anything to help residents who are opposing planning applications. It doesn't do anything to enhance the reputation of the council, and it certainly does nothing to help the planning process. In my view, I think 6 o'clock is fair. It allows people to get to meetings, it allows those who work to get there in reasonable time, and it makes planning available to everybody. In my view, Mr. Chairman, we should think of our residents and reject this amendment and put it back to 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Richard Everett. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself a bit on the fence here. It's a bit unusual for me. On the one hand, from a personal point of view, sitting on the planning committee as I did, it would be much more convenient for it to start at 5 o'clock. And from that point of view, I think it would be an absolutely fantastic idea. However, as has been pointed out to us by the leader, and I'll quote him from his speech earlier, being an effective councillor requires both commitment and hard work, and as councillors, each of us represents our community and the interests of our residents. And I think the interest of the residents is important here. So I seek to make a mitigation to bringing the time forward to 5 o'clock, in that some residents may not be able to get there by that time. And particularly important is residents who wish to make their views known to the committee. So I have suggested an amendment to this, which I will read out. Recommended that the permanent commencement time of meetings of the planning committee be changed from 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. and that if a ward member referrer, and so far that's exactly as it was originally, add the following 4 words, or scheduled public speaker, and the rest is then again as it was before. For a planning application so requests, the officers, in consultation with the chairman of the committee, should make every effort to list that particular planning application later on in the planning committee's agenda. I believe that that goes some way to trying to make sure that the representation of the people that we represent is actually possible for them to do at that earlier time. And I would recommend that amendment to you.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Everett. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Nick Turner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very happy to second that. And if the debate continues, I reserve my right to speak later on.
Thank you. Right, we are discussing the amendment at present. Councillor Everett's amendment. Councillor Paul Honeywood is next on my list.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Paul Honeywood, can you hold on a moment? I'm getting advice from the officer. I've been advised, Councillor Honeywood, are you speaking on the amendment? So you're speaking on the amendment and the motion afterwards? Yes. Yeah. Councillor Honeywood, Paul Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Wasn't that long ago that I stood in this chamber and suggested that this was a self-serving policy that was being put forward, that it benefited councillors and no one else. I think the actions of the last few weeks have actually shown that to be the case. We've carried out a consultation. The consultation was carried out amongst councillors. So councillors had input on what time they would like the meeting start. In fact, councillors actually raised concerns that they may not be able to get to this meeting on time. And so it was suggested that a councillor can ask to have the item delayed. At no point in that consultation did anyone say, what do the public think? Shall we ask the people who turn up to the planning meetings and ask them how they found it? Did they find it a suitable time to start at 6, or would they have preferred to get here earlier? For me, it's proven the point. It's a self-serving proposal that's being put forward. 6 o'clock Gibbs time. I'm aware of councillors who work, and I think one spoke earlier, to get here in time, he would have to travel quite a few miles to arrive here on time to speak. Imagine he wasn't a councillor and he wanted to be here. And finally, I'd like to travel further back in time. There's a councillor here, Councillor Amos. Councillor Amos came before this meeting in the past. He came up with the idea of putting in an additional meeting for the budget. He wanted to put that in so meetings didn't run late, and it was the other side of the chamber that accused him of wanting to get home for his cocoa. So I wonder who it is now who wants to get home for their cocoa and is not thinking of the people that should have been consulted and their views. If we represent local people, we need to get their views before we make such a decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Peter Harris. This is on the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is just on the amendment, and I would like to speak again on the main motion afterwards when we consider that. Is that okay, Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, if we look at Councillor Everett's amendment here, I just question how this will work. How will it be communicated with all members of the public? And how will it be communicated fairly? Because, you know, what the amendment says is that, you know, basically any public speaker, any councillor, anybody can put a request in to actually put the meeting back to, or their item back to 6 o'clock, and maybe later. So it's very, very difficult. And having served on the planning committee, I know how transparent the rules have to be. You cannot, you know, discriminate against any one person or cause an issue there for them. You know, how much notice will the chairman require to alter the time? And once the chairman has changed the time, then how will that be communicated? So will the member of the public or the councillor let the chairman or request the chairman like an hour before, and then that's got to be communicated with all the other members of the public out there? And it doesn't overcome the issue, which is that starting at 5 o'clock will cause problems and will prevent some people from attending these meetings. Now, I'm going to speak more on that when we discuss the main proposal. But I won't be supporting this amendment because it still has 5 o'clock in it. And if you're going to go to so much trouble in actually changing the times, if somebody requests it, you have to ask yourself, why bother to change the time in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. Next councillor is Councillor Maria Fowler on the amendment.
Chairman, my apologies. I, at the time, thought we were speaking on the actual proposal.
Okay,
Not
so
the
you would
amendment.
talk after the one
Yes,
amendment, right?
thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Next councillor is Councillor Zoe Fairley on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I also have concerns over the process issue in regard to the amendment, but I'd also just like to say my ward is Ardley and Little Bromley, probably the furthest that you're going to get from this building where these meetings are held, and they're also a ward that is suffering hugely from intense planning. I asked various residents in my ward as to how they would feel about the planning committee time being changed from 6 to 5 o'clock. There were various people that said, well, you know, we rush back to try and watch online, or, you know, there's just no way that we're ever going to be able to get to the town hall for a meeting at 5 o'clock, considering how many applications are coming in fast and furious for Ardley especially. Within the leader's speech on the state of tendering, I'd just like to refer him back to, you know, extensive efforts to engage with the residents. And then I'd also like to refer to the reference from Cabinet that we're looking at this document, and there's nothing in there about residents. It's about councillors and about councillors being surveyed. I won't be voting for the amendment. I will be going against that, but I just think fundamentally this is wrong, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Thank you. I was going to say any more councillors. Councillor Jeff Bray on the amendment. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll speak on the amendment. I would also like to speak on the main motion once complete. I think the amendment put forward by my colleague Councillor Everett was incredibly well-meaning and attempted to deal with some of the problems. I don't actually think it addresses the principal problem. And worse than that, I suspect that it could create an administrative nightmare for whoever will have to, as I think has been pointed out by previous speakers, notify everybody of who's going to be in which order, that order changes back again. Frankly, I wouldn't want to do that administration job. That would be horrible. So I'm unable to support the amendment on that basis. But Chairman, I would like to speak on the motion later. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, next speaker is on the amendment is Councillor Nick Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very brief on this. I see that.
Could you use your mic, please?
I am using my mic. I'm assuming the IT works. Does it? Thank you. Mostly. Yeah. This is just a fallback position. All it is, just in case it does go, the council so decides to take them time back to 5 o'clock, that there would be a way of trying to accommodate the public. And that is the reason I second it, and that is why I will vote for it. And I would like to be able to speak to the main amendment when we come to that, please, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Morrison, did you indicate to speak on the amendment? Councillor Morrison, you should have indicated before I went to Councillor Turner, but I will let you speak at this point, Councillor Morrison. On the amendment only.
Thank you, Chair. I'm getting quite confused actually in the order of events that we seem to be ping-ponging backwards and forwards. What I would like to ask is actually a question. I think we have had several meetings already at 5 o'clock. Is there any evidence that anybody, I'm not talking about councillors, I'm talking about members of the public, is there any evidence so far that people have actually had a problem getting there, or you've had complaints from members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Davison.
Just for picking up Councillor Morrison's, let me just sort of be absolutely clear. When you have a motion on the table, if there is then an amendment, discuss the amendment. That becomes what you're discussing. You have a right to speak on the amendment. Once that is voted upon, then you vote on and you voted on the amendment. It is passed, it becomes a substantive motion. It falls, you revert to the substantive motion as per your agenda. You then have a right to speak on the substantive motion. So if you've spoken on the amendment, you can still speak again once to the substantive motion. And unless there is a subsequent amendment, in which case that is put, unless that has been the practice, as always, from Local Government 92. So just to clarify. And I would also just like to add that, when you then have the final, coming to the final speakers, normally what it is you revert to the seconder who has reserved their right, as Councillor Turner did, then you revert to the proposer of the amendment, and then it reverts back to either the chairman or the person who, in this case, the leader, who made the original amendment. So that's there. I hope that's clarified the proposal and the process, and also the Speaker's order, which has always been the case, but just to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. We will now go to the mover of the amendment, Councillor Richard Everett.
Thank you. That was as clear as mud to me as to what that actually meant in terms of, do I speak now to the substantive motion or what?
Mr. Davison.
Sorry, just to be absolutely clear, you are all speaking to the amendment at the moment. Once you've had the vote for the amendment, then you will speak to the substantive motion. So, Councillor Everett, what you are now doing is summing up to the amendment, because you were the proposer of the amendment. It will then go to the leader, who always is for the Constitution.
Councillor Richard Everett.
Thank you very much for that. That now makes sense. For me, it is about, as Councillor Turner said, having a backstop. We need to make sure that the public are safeguarded if we change this time to 5 p.m. I think it's important that members of the public are able to make their representations, and if they can't get there by 5 o'clock, they obviously wouldn't be able to. So that is what this amendment seeks to do, is to create a backstop so that if we as a council decide we are going to move this back to 5 p.m, there is some mitigation for the general public in terms of them being able to make representations about planning committee applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Everett. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'll go to Councillor Everett first. Thanks for listening to my speech. Appreciate that. Speaking with Cabinet and Chairman of the Planning Committee, I'm happy to agree the wording. Seems fairly reasonable. So I'm happy to change that. Thank you, Chairman.
Bear with us, the officers are going to look up on the Constitution on where we go from here. Thank you for coming. Okay, colleagues, Mr. Davidson is now going to say a few words on what the officer has just decided.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just that the reason for the moment just to pause is that as we've done in many occasions in the chamber before, if the mover, and the second in this case the mover, accepts the amendment, it becomes a substantive motion. So therefore, the Councillor Stevenson has indicated he accepts the amendment, but it becomes a substantive motion. So you're now going to be debating the amendment as now your substantive motion. Thank you.
Okay, our first speaker is Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. Now to the main event. Right. Back in September, when this was brought before the planning committee, when I was on the planning committee, a 4-hour session that we had on the planning committee, which was, there was a couple of very controversial planning issues that came forward, so it was a very long debated issue. Right at the very end of that, this was put before the councillors that were there. 2 councillors were not present, Councillor Placey and Councillor Bray. There were 7 members there. No debate whatsoever took place about the reasons why this was needed. And a vote just went through. I had to stop proceedings to say, look, can I say something? And I said my piece on the evening, and then a vote went through. And yes, and I would like it minuted, I was the only councillor that voted against this, because I was against it right from the start, because I could see exactly what the problems were. And that's probably a resident on that phone there complaining about the time now. And, you know, I subsequently went through, I was the only councillor that said no. I subsequently sent emails to the chairman on the 2nd of October and asked for full reasons as to why this time should be brought forward at 5 o'clock. No answer was given. No answer was given on the night that this vote went through. I returned the email, asked again. Again, no reason has been given as to why it is necessary to change it from 6 till 5. And members, you can read this document in front of you and you won't see a reason why we need to move it from 6 till 5. Morden Council, if we look at other councils, Morden Council, 7:30. Braintree, 7:15 start. Chelmsford, 7 o'clock start. And indeed, the start time of this meeting is 7:30. Everyone else thinks that it's important to have the public there. Why on earth are we not, why are we not holding this meeting at 5 o'clock? Do we change that as well? I think it's an absolute disgrace. There's so many more things that I need to say, but I'm going to run out of time, unfortunately. Question was asked, has anybody actually complained about it? Yes, Wheelie Parish Council, Tendring Parish Council, and residents that I've spoken to at those meetings have complained about it. And they've written into the council to complain. Last week, I attended a meeting. It was difficult for me to get there at 5 because I work. And we have to ask, how do we value transparency and how do we value our residents and our working residents? It's okay for retired councillors to turn up at 5 o'clock, but for working residents, it means an awful lot. The question has to be why.
Councillor Harris, your time is up, but if you'd like to raise...
I'll get to one more point, actually. The last thing I want to say is, our motto says, for the good of all, pro bono omnium. I think we should change that to pro bono de curio, which is for the good of councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. Councillors, can I remind councillors that to keep your phones on silent or turn them off? People want to debate in here and it doesn't help where mobile phones are going off. People who are watching this will say councillors are on their phones. So can we please turn them off or put them on silent? Next councillor is Councillor Jeff Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. I am now leading a group of just 3 members. And between the 3 members on my group, we have 16 years of experience on the planning committee. Accordingly, we do know a bit about it and what happens on the planning committee. So the comments my colleague Councillor Harris has just made are all pertinent. They are all real. They're very real. People do struggle to get to these meetings. Realistically, people who work very rarely finish at 4 o'clock in order to give them an hour to get to the planning committee for 5 o'clock. And I do appreciate that there is an attempt here to say that we can move things back if a councillor can't make it. That's fine. But again, we asked councillors what they thought. A survey was sent out to councillors. Lovely, very nice. My opinion, I don't have one. I don't actually mind if it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock personally. But actually some of our residents might. And I'm not here to represent me. I'm here to represent them. That's what we do. Have there been any complaints? I've heard a couple of people who, shall we say, grudged a bit. But the fact of the matter is, it's our job to make it as easy as we can for our residents to make their voice heard. We will make their voice heard when we can, but in circumstances like this, it's for them to do it themselves and for us to make it as easy and as possible as we can for them to do it. I don't fully understand why the meeting is suggested to be brought back to 5 o'clock. It's been 6 o'clock for as long as I can remember. But I am a big fan of transparency. Those who know me well know that. And back in 2015, when I was first elected, one of the very first things I did at this council was to push forward a motion, which was supported pretty much by everybody, to record back then council planning meetings, local plan meetings, full council meetings, and make them available on our website for our residents, simply for transparency. So there's a transparency issue here. And the second issue, of course, is on planning matters. People really are interested. If it's at the bottom of their road, they want to be able to come and talk to us. And they shouldn't lose money, time at work in order to do so. And I have asked 1 or 2 people, quite a few more than 1 or 2, actually everyone I've spoken to since it came on, since this was put forward.
Councillor Bray, can you host? I do apologise. Can the councillor please turn your phone off or silent? This is a full council. We have to respect everyone here to have their phones off or silent. Thank you. I do apologise, Councillor Bray. Please do continue.
Thank you, Chairman. No problem at all. So, Chairman, I think we have to put the needs of our residents first. It's important that our residents can come, and it's important we make it as easy as possible for them to come. My personal opinion, I don't mind, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, but there are people at some point in our district who would be affected, and remember the jellyfish. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. The next councillor on my list is Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, listening to the debate, there seems to be a lot of councillors, at least on this side of the chamber so far, that have listened to what their residents have said, that their residents do want to come along. They don't want to have to pay council tax and then lose money on top of that to take time off work to come along and watch the council they've paid for work. I think it's wrong. 6 o'clock has worked for many years. We haven't asked the residents. We don't seem to really worry what the residents think by putting this motion forward. So, Chairman, I think if we're going to press on with this, we need to be clear. People who think it's a good idea and haven't spoken to residents should sign their name on the form, so to speak. So I should be calling for a named vote on this one, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Honeywood. Next councillor is Councillor Mark Cousins.
Thank you, Chairman. I think
My view of this is about the reputation of the council. Tonight we've seen residents wanting their day in court. We had a question read out. The residents perhaps didn't get the answer they wanted, but they did get their day in court. And I have been serving on the planning committee, and for me, you know, whether it's if you've had to give up the day of work to go on site visits in the morning, 5 o'clock's no problem. But I remember in the past, and one of my colleagues was saying that, you know, we used to start meeting at 7:30 at the planning committee, and I actually became chairman of the planning committee in the days when planning was held in this building, and the previous chairman had died, and I was going to be elected on the night in this room. And when we came here at 7:30, I was suddenly quite nervous, having not chaired any major committees here, to see there must have been 200 people in here. The tiered seating was absolutely full because people wanted their day in court. Residents wanted to come and see what was going on. And, you know, even the amendment only talks about the speakers. Now, public speakers, people are thinking members of the public, but that also includes the land agent and all of those who's probably had plenty of warning of what time it's going to be. But people do want to come and listen to it. And I mean, that particular application, you know, probably the public were disappointed because, you know, we actually approved it and they were all against it. But they did all have their day in court. And I think that was quite clear that a later time, I haven't seen anywhere near even a fraction of that percentage of people turning up under the modern, you know, planning committee. So I think people do need to have their day in court to come and listen to it, even if it goes against them.
Thank you, Councillor Cousins. Before I go on to the next speaker, me as councillor for here for 22 years, I was also chairman of the planning committee, and it was 7 o'clock back then. But we moved it back years ago because of the time. It used to go on late. So that's my only comment I'm going to say as normal ward councillor. Chairman, me as chairman, I now go on to Councillor Ivan Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I can only talk about what the Constitutional Working Party had in front of them when they had to make the decision, members both sides. And that was on the back of a survey that had been done by 2 members, and the vote for them to move to 5 o'clock was 6 to 1. Now, there's lots of members opposite saying, I represent residents here. Why didn't you answer the survey on behalf of your residents? And then we would have had the number and we'd have had the recognition of what those numbers and those feelings were about. Now, you talk about planning being a very important subject. In County Council, we talk about adult social care and we talk about children's services. That's in the daytime. Equally important. But those meetings happen in the daytime and people come along, recently came along to one of those meetings to have their say. And if you probably looked at things, actually, modern local government, it's all right for us to keep saying, let's stick to the old times. There's probably just as many residents who can't make past the time that you're talking about, sitting there until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, as there are who want to come there earlier because they've got other commitments to get home to. So listen to both sides of your residents. When you talk about what we're doing is only right for the councillors, I think it's the opposite. You're doing what's right for you and not for those residents. Unless we change our ways as councillors and look at certain changes and modernise local government to include more people, you recognise that at election. How many members here run around trying to get people to stand now? And it's because of the commitment they have to make. So why don't we change things to try and see if it's better for people to want to become a councillor if the times are better and more convenient for them to actually stand and be part of that. And the last thing I would say is everyone says what a fantastic job our officers do, and they are doing an absolutely fantastic job. Now, for them to actually work all day and then sit here till 10, half 10, 11 o'clock at night, just because you feel better about doing it, I think that's just wrong. Have some consideration for the people who are working over the hours they possibly should be doing
all the time to actually just justify you being here till 10, half 10, 11 o'clock, because that is ridiculous as well. So I think 5 o'clock is the right time. I support the amendment, and I hope every member do. We need to start looking at changes to local government to make sure that other people come in and the job and the position of a councillor is more acceptable, rather than keep sticking to old times where people are not, they are disregarded, excluded, and don't want to take part. I hope everyone votes for the 5 o'clock. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Next speaker is Councillor Gary Culver. Please remain seated.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Henderson has actually just raised the main point that I was going to raise, but I will address another one first. I believe it was Councillor Cousins who said that the numbers attending planning meetings weren't as high as they used to be. And I say, I think Councillor Bray addressed that issue earlier, and he quite rightly said that one of his very early motions was to enable such meetings to be streamed. It is now very convenient for a lot of residents to stay in the warmth of their own home rather than travel, and I think the numbers are probably completely unaffected, or possibly even higher. Now, in the last 3 or 4 meetings of the Planning Committee, there have been some very controversial applications that have been heard, with strong views on both sides. The residents have been in the public gallery, so when it's important to them, they do make sure they attend. They are not being denied that option. Likewise, they now have the option to watch the meeting being streamed. But the one thing, as Councillor Ivan Henderson has just said, that has been totally ignored, as if they didn't exist by those sitting opposite, is the impact on our officers, who have already worked an extremely long day and have then got to concentrate to an incredible degree on what can be prolonged debate, long technical meetings covering many different applications. It's about time they were given a bit of consideration by councillors, and it's clear those opposite are giving them no consideration at all. I hope now they will rethink and support the substantive motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. Next councillor on my list is Councillor Nick Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I actually remember when we moved it from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and I think you were either chairman or became chairman. It was 2007. And this was done because the then chairman had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and butcher things. And so we changed it for him, and we never changed it back. And now we're going to 5 o'clock. For what a reason, we do not know. So I think the most important thing in here, and I certainly know this from my business experience, is to have a set time that everybody understands. You don't turn up to a pub at 9:30 in the morning and expect it to be open. And you know, it's always there at 10:30, and the same applies throughout. And then when you go to a pub now at 9 o'clock at night, haven't got any customers, they close. So what happens? You don't go. So the real point about this is, if we start making times of our meetings a movable feast, we start making it as easy as possible for others, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. I have argued this every 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, and I'm certain Councillor Talbot will remind me of this, as we're the longest serving members, and I'm just coming up to the beginning of my 26th year on this, which is over half the life, by the way, of this authority. I have argued this, and I've argued consistency and constantly ever since I first came up in the early 2000s, that we keep these times, we stay with these times, because everybody knows about it. And it also does not discriminate against the working member. Coming back to Councillor Henderson's comments. That's fine for county. County has always been daytime. Town, parish, district, boroughs have always been evenings. Now, I do accept that the working patterns change to a large, is changing. I accept that. But I do think we start moving away from what has been custom and practice, we will be shooting ourselves in the foot, and therefore I will not be, I will be voting accordingly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Now, Councillor Carrie Doyle. Please use your mic.
Thank you. I just want to say that there's been an awful lot of presumption here this evening, presumption around people not speaking to the people that they represent, presumption that we all work 9 to 5. Actually, the majority of us don't work 9 to 5 anymore. If you look across healthcare, if you look across all of those basic services, people work long hours, 12-hour shifts. They work long days. So whether or not you do it at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you're going to have some people that cannot get there. And I, for one, support this because of the flexibility within it. Because whether we like it or not, we're in a new world now, a world where people do things differently. And saying that this is the way we've always done it no longer carries any clout. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Next councillor is Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it would be remiss of me not to speak, bearing in mind planning is in my portfolio. Just covering a couple of comments. Bayberg District Council hold their planning meetings during the day and only fit 10 members of the public into their public gallery because it's so small. Just a point. So this proposal was put forward to full council on the 28th of November 2023. I'm really sorry I wasn't here, but apparently the issue was debated. I don't know what was said, unfortunately, and I haven't listened to the recording. It was then referred to the Constitution Review Working Party, where it was debated probably over more than one meeting. It was then put to Cabinet, and then it's come to Council. There was a survey. Yes, it was only to councillors. There are 48 of us. There weren't 48 responses. So those of us that did not respond, were you representing your residents? Did you have a point to make? Or have you only thought about it now? And also, and I take some of the points on board, but also, none of you have emailed me and made your point to me that I could then take up with officers. Nobody. I've had no emails from councillors or residents saying this is wrong. And lastly, Chairman, if I could, and I will be brief, is we can always look at it again. If anybody decides that actually somebody has been disenfranchised or anything like that, we can look at it again through the Constitution Review Working Party. But do you want to go back to the days of starting at 6 and walking out of the council chamber here in the committee room at midnight? Because that's what some of us have done in the past, on more than one occasion. And our officers have had to stay there till that late. And then they've had to come into work at 8, 9 o'clock the following day. Some of us haven't. So, as has been said, consider our officers, consider the time, and also consider that if you don't think it's working, make representations to the leader who chairs the Constitution Review Working Party. Can we look at it again? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I have no other councillors on my list. So we go to Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened with intent. And the first thing I'm going to say, I just want to thank the current committee, all of you, for doing what I deem as a difficult job. It requires extensive training, something I'm not willing to do for planning. It requires a commitment of once a month, all day. Yeah, you get there in the mornings, I see them often, and you're still here late at night. It requires extensive reading beforehand, questions to be asked, and ongoing commitments to training. I think that's the important bit. If any councillor is showing anything about commitment, it's these councillors when it comes to planning. And I'm not just talking about the people who sit in the committee. Many of you have substituted or been on that planning committee. We all have a good understanding of what is actually required to be on that committee. I think Councillor Doyle made a classic point. There are always going to be winners and losers to this one. And I think one of the biggest things I would take from this is that we have actually, you're right, it's about councillors. They represent themselves. They also represent the public. And I think it should be noted that we live in a population as the highest elderly population in the whole of Europe. And yet somehow the working man is the priority. I get it. I understand. I'm a working man, and it can be tough. But as I said, there are winners and losers. As Councillor Baker said, councillors were surveyed. It was a poor response, but it was a definitive response. It was 5 o'clock. And if we were to do 6, we would regularly be finishing at 10, 11. And how is that fair on residents? And those are the ones that spoke to me, who said the meetings went on too long. 4 hours is an average time, I would suggest. So I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. I've accepted the amendment, and I think we will push for 5 o'clock tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Now we will go to the vote. We need 9 councillors to indicate for a name vote, please. Thank you very much. We will have a name vote. Mr. Davidson will read out your name and your vote accordingly.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, can I just remind you exactly what you're voting on, because this is the substantive motion is that the permanent commencement time of meetings of the Planning Committee be changed from 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. If a ward member, referrer, or scheduled public speaker for a planning application so request, the officers, in consultation with the chairman of the committee, should make every effort to list that particular planning application later on in the planning committee agenda. I will call out your name. Please say if you're for, against, or abstain to that motion. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Amos. Councillor Baker. Councillor Barrett.
Abstain.
Councillor Barry. Councillor Bensilem.
For.
Councillor Bray. Councillor Calver. For. Councillor Casey. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Codling.
Against.
Councillor Andrea Cousins. Councillor Mark Cousins.
Against.
Councillor Davidson. Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Everett. Councillor Fairley. Councillor Fowler.
For.
Councillor Goldman.
For.
Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Guglielmi. Councillor Harris.
Against.
Councillor Ivan Henderson.
For.
Councillor Joe Henderson.
For.
Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Against.
Councillor Sue Honeywood. Councillor Cox.
For.
Councillor McWilliams.
Against.
Councillor Morrison.
For.
Councillor Newton.
For.
Councillor Oxley. Councillor Placey.
For.
Councillor Platt. Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Skills. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Steady.
For.
Councillor Gemma Stevenson.
For.
Councillor Mark Stevenson. For. Councillor Sudra.
For.
Councillor Talbot. Councillor Turner.
Against.
Councillor White. Thank you, members.
Thank you, councillors. The officers is going to count out the vote, and he will let you know the outcome. Thank you. Mr. Davison will now let you know what the vote of that was. Mr. Davison?
Thank you, Chairman. For the motion, 26. Against the motion, 16. Abstentions, 1. Motion was therefore carried. Thank you.
Thank you. That clearly has been approved. Thank you. Item number 16, joint report of the Monitoring Officer and Cabinet, A3, annual review of Council's Constitution, pages 37 to 86. Councillor Stevenson. Oh, Stevenson, I should say.
I was hoping my wife was going to take this one, but thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm going to be brief on this one. I'd just like to thank the Working Party for all the work they did on this. Picks up a number of miscellaneous amendments, and I can already see that we've got 2 amendments coming in. So I think I'm just going to move it, Chairman, and let's get on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Any questions? Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be obviously supporting the change of constitution. There's just one item which I think the leader will know what I'm referring at. Just to, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but in the rare occasion that a county councillor wants to address the committee, but doesn't happen hardly at all. It would be just good to allow the chairman to give some flexibility to allow the member to address committee on those very rare occasions that happens. Don't expect to have a full review on it, but as I said, it's not very often that the occasion comes. And when it does come, obviously there is, because there's quite some importance around the application itself. So I was happy to leave that in his hands, and you know, if we can take it outside, but just really to give some direction to allow some flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlo Guglielmi. Next councillor is Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. Wish to put forward an amendment to item number 16, please. I'll read out the amendment. That the terms of reference of the Planning Committee and the members' referral scheme for planning applications be amended to allow the relevant ward councillor or councillors, or in exceptional circumstances, a member of the Planning Committee, with the approval of the chairman of the Planning Committee, to call in to the Planning Committee any planning application submitted to remove a tree preservation order.
Thank you. And seconder, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be proud to second that.
Thank you. Now, councillors, we're going to discuss, debate on the amendment, Councillor Harris's amendment. Any other councillors? Councillor Andy Baker.
Chairman, I would just be interested to know why the amendment's been put forward. I mean, a tree preservation order would take up time at a planning committee that already has quite a loaded agenda on occasions. What next? Householder applications. You know, we could ask for every single planning application that a councillor calls in to be heard by committee. I'd like to hear Councillor Harris's reasons. Thank you.
Councillor Ivan Henson.
Yes, Chairman, as one of the Constitutional Working Party members, we have only just seen this tonight, and I think this would be better to be referred to the Constitutional Working Party for us to come back to the Cabinet and then the Council with a full report from that Constitutional Working Party. That would give a full chance of consideration by the all-party Constitutional Working Party enough to consider the fors and against of bringing in these policies. That would be my suggestion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Ivan Henderson. It's been moved by Councillor Peter Harris and seconded. Councillor Harris, do you want to speak as your motion?
Yes, I do, yes. And unlike the previous motion, I'm quite actually happy to say why I'm putting this one forward. Firstly, I'm absolutely stunned to hear the portfolio holder to actually belittle bringing trees and trying to protect our trees, our heritage of this district. And this council voted a climate emergency some years ago. And, you know, the best things that we could have really on this planet to deal with carbon are trees. So I'm absolutely stunned. I think this is well overdue and is actually a bit of a no-brainer. The reason why this has come forward is because an application, a tree in my particular ward, which the planning committee know about because we managed to get this brought before the planning committee. But basically it was surrounding a 250-year-old oak tree that had been requested, it had a TPO on it, and an insurance company, will remain nameless, but they're quite friendly with farmers, appealed that they wanted to basically save money to chop the tree down because there was a bit of subsidence on the property. And they didn't want to pay to have the house underpinned or some other remedial work, but the idea was, let's just cut the tree down to save a bit of money. And it brought well, everyone was really, really upset in our village. Beautiful tree, 250 years old. You know, some of the things that have happened, I think Captain Cook discovered Australia, American War of Independence, the Industrial Revolution. This tree has been through all sorts of things, but certainly a whole host of events throughout its life. And I appealed to the officers that this would cause a great deal of public unrest, and could they please call it in? And they agreed to call it in. And I'm thankful that the planning committee actually delayed the decision on this against officers' recommendations, and it allowed us to campaign and speak directly with the insurance company. And once they realised the extent of public feeling, the insurance company thought better off it because they'll lose more money out of losing premiums than they would actually saving money cutting the tree down. And that's the fact of it. So what we're suggesting is when an application to remove a tree, and there are 700 trees, according to our tree officer, with TPOs on, and some are covered sort of forest areas. So there's about 1,000 trees. And it means that the ward councillor can call it in to planning committee, and the planning committee can discuss that issue. I think it's well worth it.
Councillor Harris, could you wind up, please? You're out of time.
I certainly will. I'm just surprised there was no phone ringing, so it sort of threw me a little bit. I just think this is an absolute no-brainer, and I would like everyone to support this, please. And this is a hugely, hugely important
Councillor
thing
Harris,
to do.
I'm being fair. I've given you a few extra seconds. Please, can you wind up?
Thank you very much, Chair. That'll do. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Stevenson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Harris, for bringing this amendment. I think this fits in the same category as the very same topic we just discussed, where Councillor Fowler brought her idea of what should happen. There's a process to be followed. Constitutional Working Party is where it went. She was allowed to come and speak to it, to the Working Party, and that's the way. To bounce it into the Constitutional tonight, it's just not something I'm accepting. So I'll be voting this down. Thank you very much.
Councillor Culver.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to say, I think there's substance in this amendment, but I also agree with the point that the Leader and Deputy Leader have just made, that there's a process. So may I ask whether if we vote against this motion tonight, we can do so in the assurance that it will go to the Constitutional Working Party for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Carver. Mrs Hastings here now wishes to add a comment.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I can assure all members that any time a member suggests something that could go before the Constitution Review Working Party, it goes in the front of my constitution on a piece of paper and is considered. We considered all sorts of requests, and if this was voted down, it would go on the list for next time.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour of the amendment, please show. All's in favour?
Chairman, if I may, if this can follow the process that's been suggested, then I'm happy to withdraw this now, so long as it goes through to the Constitutional Working Party. At the earliest opportunity, it's brought back to the council. For every week, month that goes by, there's more trees that are lost, and I really would urge.
Councillor Harris, I fully accept that you've withdrawn your amendment and then taken on board what the leader and deputy leader said, that it will be getting, and what Mrs Hastings says, it will go to the Constitution Working Party.
Thank you very much.
Does the secretary agree?
I do agree that we need to go through the process because getting it right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Councillor Norris Alexander. Thank you. That item is now withdrawn. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. You will have noted there's a second amendment on the tables in front of you. Having heard what I've heard, and you can all see the contents of the amendment, I would also like, I think, to withdraw that without even putting it in the certain knowledge now that it will go to the Constitutional Working Party to be looked at as well. It's much in a similar vein and in a similar idea, and that would make more sense given what's been said. So let's do it properly. The process is there. Very happy to use it. Hope that's helpful, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Now we will go to the substantial motion. Been moved by Councillor Stevenson. All in favour? Against? Abstentions? That is agreed. Thank you. Item 17, reports to Council by the overview and scrutiny. There are none. Item 18, report of the Chief Exec A4, membership of the committees 87 to 88. Mr. Davison.
Thank you, Chairman. As per your agenda, members.
Thank you. Item 19, report of the Chief Exec A5, change in membership of political groups, pages 89 to 90. Mr. Davison.
Thank you, Chairman. As per your agenda in front of you, members.
Thank you. Item number 20, report of the Chief Exec A6, reveal the allocation of seats to political groups on the council, pages 91 and 100. Councillor Stevenson, Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'll just move this. A, B and C are the recommendation, please.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second that, Chairman.
Thank you. So agreed? Thank you. That is Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. In that case, I would like to move recommendation D, and we would like licensing and miscellaneous licensing, appoint Councillor Casey for those positions.
Seconder?
Seconded, Chairman.
Thank you. Agreed? That's approved. Thank you. Item 21, report of Assistant Director, Partnership A7, Pay Policy Statement 2024-2025, 101 and 122.
Chairman, if I may, myself and the Monitoring Officer will now bear an interest as we are named in this report. Or leave the meeting.
Okay, enjoyed the corridor. Okay. Thank you, Keith, for sitting in the chair. Now we go to Councillor Jane Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. It is recommended that the draft pay policy statement 2024 to 25 as set out in Appendix A to this report be approved and adopted. Recommendations on page 103.
Do we have a seconder? Second by Carla Guglielmi. All agreed? Against? Abstentions? No. Just talk amongst yourself while Mr. Davison returns from the corridor. And Lisa at 2. Welcome back, Mr. Davison and Mrs. Hastings. Item 22, report of the Monitoring Officer, maladministration, finding by the Ombudsman, pages 123 and 124. Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. As you can see, it's for noting, so I recommend to Council that we note the report. Thank you.
Seconded by?
That'll be me, Councillor. Sorry, Chairman. Very much.
Councillor Mark Stevenson, thank you. All agreed? Thank you, that's approved. Thank you. Item 23, question to pursuant to Council Procedure 11.2. There are none at this stage. Sorry. Item 24, the seating plan for meetings of full council in 2023-24. Municipal year, pages 125 and 126. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to move that.
Happy to second, Chairman.
Seconded.
Second.
All agreed? No agreement? Any disagree? Abstain. You know, it's been a long night and it's generally there's water in this, I have to say. It's the longest meeting I had, I'll tell you. Question 25, items urgent matters debate. I have none at the moment. So the next meeting's on the 30th of April 2024, 7:30. I formally declare the meeting closed at 21:40. Thank you very much.
Please be upstanding, Chairman.